Afternoon, and welcome to the Voice of Wisdom. With over 60 years of experience as an investment banker, entrepreneur, venture capitalist, securities analyst, and advisor, Morty Davis is a Wall Street legend. In addition, Mr. Davis is an outstanding economist and highly articulate, incisive, and very entertaining political analyst and strategist. He's Wall Street and capitalism personified. The over 400 companies for which he has raised more than $3 billion over the years have created a countless number of jobs and exciting new products. Through the Voice of Wisdom, Mr. Davis explores, analyzes, and debates the most topical political, economic, and social issues facing our world today. Joining Mr. Davis today for a discussion on the latest news headlines is Len Carter. Len is an investment banker, business consultant, and private investor. And now, Mr. Davis and Mr. Carter.
Welcome back. It's been a long time. I miss you all. I think it's been about 5 sessions we missed, about 5 weeks between the Rosh Hashanah holiday, the Jewish New Year, and Yom Kippur the following week, the most holy day of the year for Orthodox and Jewish people included. And then we had, for the more religious people, we had Sukkot, when we built a hut outside, not fancy or anything, just when I was young, my family and the neighbors across the street built one basically out of doors that they picked up during the year and put them together. It's not supposed to be anything like a permanent home. It's a temporary home, and it's in recognition of the time of the year when the crops are picked, and goes back to tradition in Israel, when you give away 10% of your crop to charity, to poor people. So those are the big holidays of the year, other than Passover, I guess. All the holidays, biggest holidays, come in September and October every year, at the same time as usually the World Series or the playoffs of the college football or something. Anyway, so we've been away, and you had a chance to reflect on the events that occurred during this period without the input from myself and generally Len Carter, who I'm delighted to have back with us today. As I told you many times, he's a genius. Every school he went to, he graduated top of his class. He got a master's in electrical engineering, and then he went to Harvard Business School. He was top of his class. So I always impose on him to join me if he can do it. And he's kind enough to do it. And I'm sure if you listen to him, you find that he's very incisive and also has his own opinions, not necessarily the same as mine, right, which makes it a more interesting program, because if he agreed with everything I said, it would be boring. So he's obnoxious. No, he's really a good guy, and it's a pleasure to have him back. Welcome back, Len Carter.
Thank you.
Anyway, a lot occurred during these 5 weeks. Particularly most noteworthy, I think, was the ceasefire in Gaza, and the fight between Hamas and Israel that was started on October 8th of 2 years ago, when Hamas attacked civilians and took hostages and killed 1,200 non-military people, but mostly civilians in their homes and right over the border from Gaza. So that launched the war that's been going on for about, I think, more than 200 days.
2 years.
More than 2 years.
Yeah, so it's like 700 days or more.
Is it more than 700 days?
Yeah, because 365 in a year, so yeah, it's been...
Is it 700 days?
Yeah, I mean 365 a year, so double that, you're over 700.
Is it more than 2 years?
Yep,
Yeah.
because it was October
Long
7th.
time.
It's more than October 7th, 2 October 7th, yep.
A long time for hostages to be held,
Yeah.
especially people that were not involved directly in the war, but were taken prisoners that day, in addition to the 1,200 that were killed that day. So it was horrendous. And during this period, a lot of civilians were killed in Gaza because there was an ongoing war in tight quarters where many civilians were present, and the Israelis claim, and I have it directly from people who were there, that Hamas uses civilians to defend themselves or to insulate themselves. So they use civilians as shields, hoping that the Israelis will be reluctant to kill civilians. And mostly Israel, unlike any other country in the world practically, I don't know of another country that does this, announces to the civilians, drops leaflets and says where they're going to bomb or where they're going to fight, and warns people to get away from that area to minimize civilian deaths. But it's been used as a propaganda approach of most of the world against Israel, saying Israel kills civilians and innocent children and so forth, which is, insofar as possible, in terms of Israel's efforts, the furthest from that truth. In other words, insofar as possible, during a war, children get killed and civilians get killed, and that's what is the most devastating part of a war, that so many people that have nothing to do with starting the war or have any interest in continuing the war are victims of the devastation that occurs to them, to themselves, to their families, to their homes. War is a terrible thing. We should outlaw wars. There's no reason to have wars. We should negotiate, and unless you're directly attacked, you should never be involved in a war. As the Monroe Doctrine, Monroe was one of the founders of the United States, said the United States should never be involved in any war outside of its own continent. In other words, only if it's attacked directly by another country on the United States or any country in South America, our neighbors, but should avoid all other international wars where Americans would lose their lives and, in fact, cause others to lose their lives. without any solid reason for America to indulge in those activities. So we haven't followed the Monroe Doctrine. If you haven't noticed, the United States has been in more wars than any other country in the world since the end of the Second World War, since 1945. I think 9 different wars. North Korea, where we had no interest, we were never attacked by North Korea, and this is since the end of the Second World War. I'm not talking about Japan or Germany. So since the Second World War, North Korea, Vietnam, Afghanistan,
Iraq twice.
Iraq,
Twice.
Iran, 9 different wars. And we've never, till this day, the United States has never been attacked on its own land. The closest we came, supposedly, but we don't claim it was the United States that was attacked, but our ships, our battleships and destroyers, our Navy was attacked on December 7th, 1941 by Japan. And even before that, the Nazis, the Hitler regime, attacked the American naval vessels and submarines in the Atlantic Ocean. But in terms of direct hits on the U.S. land and civilians, not once since the United States has been established, since the war with the British, the Revolutionary War, for the United States to establish itself as an independent country away from the British king royalty, kingship rule. So if the Monroe Doctrine was followed, we would have never been in another war since the Revolutionary War, because we've never been attacked. We are the most, in that sense, the most belligerent country in the world. Not only in that sense, but we supply almost all of the armaments, military equipment, and hazardous equipment, the killing equipment, to all the rest of the nations of the world. Even the enemies of of our allies, the good guys, are supported by American arms, because that's our the United States most profitable export. We also spend more on defense and are more powerful by far than any other country in the world. We spend more than all the rest of the top, I think, 10, 15 countries in the world.
Combined.
Combined, right. So we are the source of the weaponry that the wars entailed. We're the only ones in the history of the world that ever used an atomic bomb against the Japanese at Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and bombed only civilians in those 2 cities. There were no military in those 2 cities. So even though we always try to be, or pretend to be, or claim to be, the most peaceful, we use this statement that Ronald Reagan used, and we continue to use: peace through strength. And if that's true, we shouldn't be in any wars, because we have the strongest everything, strongest weaponry, strongest secret weapons, major breakthrough weapons, things that can hit anywhere in the world. So it's a hard claim to make, that peace through strength. Matter of fact, during the Second World War, and before that, the Defense Department was called the War Department. Then they thought euphemistically, we don't say to people, your father dropped dead, we're sorry to hear that. We say we're sorry he passed away. So we don't like to say we're warriors, we're war. So we made it much more palatable. Say that's Defense Department, and nobody could be against defense. When you bring up a bill in Congress to spend on defense, nobody ever steps up, almost nobody steps up to resist that. It always gets almost universal vote, unanimous vote. And the reason is, in addition to feeling peace through strength, there goes my happiness book that I talked to you about so much. Incidentally, since the last meeting, the 5 weeks, I've gotten a number of letters praising the book from people who bought it and said how much it's helped them through difficult periods, and even through good periods. It's uplifted their lives, and the not happiness, because in this country we think of happiness when somebody's on a lot of liquor, a lot of beer, or on some addictive drugs that makes them slap everybody on the back and laugh, and they seem like they're really happy. And I'm talking more about contentment, the real quality happiness, genuine happiness that you wish for your kids and for your loved ones. And they've been uplifted, and I love that. It gives me so much pleasure, because that was my goal in writing this book. I was inspired by a priest, a bishop in Manhattan, Bishop, what was his name again? I'm terrible at names at this advanced stage. Bishop Neil. Len, do you remember his name?
So it's who wrote The Power of Positive Thinking?
Yeah, The Power of Positive Thinking. That influenced my life tremendously.
So Norman, he was a...
Norman Vincent Peale, that's it.
Yes.
Yeah. A brilliant book, and one that I, till this day, I adhere to, and I learned a lot from. And also Dale Carnegie, who wrote How to Stop Worrying and Start Living, which is also very uplifting and suggests how to be happier. And all the books over time that I've read, all the way back to the Bible, almost all of the religious books of the world, the great philosophers, Plato and Socrates, every great philosopher. So I tried to gather all that helpful and incisive and beneficial directives and guidance to live a better life myself, help my kids live a better life, all my loved ones, and to decide to write a book encompassing all of their collective gifts that they offered us over the years and over the decades and centuries, and put it in my own book. And I'm pleased when I get the feedback that I do, saying it's accomplishing that goal that I have to create a more fulfilling, uplifting, enriching, and not happiness as when you're drunk or on drugs, but what was the word I used before?
Content and fulfilled and
Contentment, uplifting, fulfilling. Contentment is really genuine happiness. Because even in the Jewish teachings, it said, who is happy? One who is satisfied with his portion. If you count your blessings every day and appreciate your blessings, what you have and the things that you're not afflicted by or feel punished by diseases, illnesses, all the negatives, failures, disappointments, all of those things that help depress you, and you can have that kind of contentment, counting your blessings every day. As simple as the fact that your eyes work, or your hands work, or you can look out the window and enjoy nature, when so many people don't have that. People that lose their, sometimes go through treatment for cancer, and during their treatment lose all their senses, in some cases, or Alzheimer's, where they lose all their senses, or people that have the major accidents and go blind, or lose their movements, their hands, I have one rabbinical friend who had a child, has about 5 children, but the last child was born blind and victimized by various illnesses that limit his abilities. And every day he talks to his kids, the other kids, he says, do you appreciate that your fingers work, that your eyes work, that you look out the window and can enjoy nature, that you have all these senses that give you the ability to enjoy beauty and your loved ones. And he keeps teaching that then the appreciation of the most basic things that every day that we wake up, we take for granted that we're going to have. So it's very important, even so important that you should write it down, all your blessings. Not necessarily tons of money or material things, but just all the basic things that give the opportunity to enjoy life, to be content. Enjoy a contented life, genuine, inspiring, inspirational happiness. That's the greatest blessing of all. Not having trillions of dollars. I've had friends that were as rich as Rockefeller almost, and committed suicide. So that doesn't do it. It's nice to have money, it's nice to have enough to be satisfied and to get the things you need, and even many of the things you want, but that's not going to bring you happiness. Contentment is if you're happy counting the blessings that you have. enjoying the blessings that you have, realizing the blessings, the gifts that you have, and which you take for granted every single day of your life. When you get up and you have them. So when we do this program every week, because we discuss the events of the week that make the headlines, which inevitably are the ones that are the most depressing: killings, wars, murders, terrible diseases, epidemics, friends and relatives and acquaintances that have cancer or have other terrible afflictions. And we don't appreciate that. We're missing the most important factors in life, and that is the blessing of being well, of being capable of enjoying the God-given gift of life, that were created in the image of God, of the highest being we can imagine. So please do that. Count your blessings, and then you'll know how to enjoy life. And if you want to get the quickest way to get there, run out, don't walk out, don't wait till tomorrow, run out as soon as possible and get a copy of this fabulous book. I say it's fabulous because the feedback I've gotten has told me it's fabulous. And since I had it printed and on sale, I've had such good experience that I've offered anybody that buys it or gets it as a gift, if they send me their purchase slip or the purchase slip of the individual who bought it for them as a gift, I will return double their money back, not just their money back, and they can keep the book. I don't know of a better deal. Until this day, I have not gotten one offer like to return the money, even though they can get double their money, which itself should make somebody happy. Buy two books and you double your money. Buy 10 books and you got 10 times your money. But please don't do that, because I would return all of those 10 purchase slips costs. So, as I said, news is depressing, and that's what we bring you. We talk about the events of the week that are the good news. Doesn't make the headlines. Good news is nice to have, but it's just not what sells newspapers or media. You don't get breaking news that somebody got a degree honoring them and Phi Beta Kappa and summa cum laude. That doesn't even make the newspapers, because every day that people get that. But if somebody commits multiple murders, they got a chance to making the front page. And for sure, if they're a serial killer, and even that in some cases doesn't make the front page. If the only sure way maybe is if somebody's a serial killer and puts the bodies of those he kills in the freezer and eats his victims. That's harrowing enough to make the front page, I guess. I'm not sure all the time that it even makes the front page. So we human beings can do some terrible things, and it doesn't even make the front page. But the the good things certainly don't. People could donate $100 million to a school, as Zuckerberg did to Newark's to a school system where the kids suffer very poor grades in reading and mathematics, arithmetic, basic arithmetic, and he gave $100 million to try to improve that result. Unfortunately, it hasn't yet shown to have a significant impact because it takes more than money. It takes dedicated teachers and training of good teachers and so forth. But anyway, my point is that we deliver to you every week, Wednesday, 6:30, news that if it didn't depress you early in the week when you read it about it, or heard about it, or if you didn't hear about it, hear it now for the first time, it's sure to depress you if you're normal, and get upset by these kind of tragedies. And so I apologize, because that's the nature of news. And I'm telling you, the best way to resolve that, shortest and cheapest, most effective way, is run out and get a copy of this book. No risk. If you don't like it, if you find it doesn't benefit you, if it doesn't make a big difference, in short order, because it has humor, it has jokes, it has uplifting stories, it has all the things that should eliminate depression and inspire and empower you, uplift you to be happier, to be more fulfilled. And what was the word I used again? More
Content?
Content. Anyway, it's riskless. You can double your money back if you write. Send in you don't have to write, just send me the purchase slip and a return address, and I'll send you double your money back, and you can even keep the book. So there you go. I don't think you could get a better offer. So, without further ado, I do want to tell you, as I always do, the best way to improve the quality of your life is to have some goals that you're looking to fulfill, that you feel will make you a better person, a happier person, a greater gift to humanity, to mankind, to your family, to your children, to yourself, and appreciate yourself more. So do that. Do it for me, do it for yourself, and do it because it makes a lot of sense. So find something that you love, some hobby, some career, some vocation, and start pursuing success in that activity, achievement in that activity. As Thomas Edison told the young man that came to him and asked, how come you never gave up? You failed 1,000 times, and you never gave up, and you finally succeeded in developing the light bulb, such a great contribution to humanity. Before that, we had to have candles and couldn't read late at night, or couldn't do the things that we do without effort. And you go to a theater at night, just the difference it's made in the quality of our lives is insurmountable, is immeasurable. So when he was asked how come he never gave up when he failed 1,000 times, he said, young man, who told you I failed 1,000 times? The young man said, everybody knows it. We always talk about it at school and lectures. Teachers talk about it. Everybody talks about it. It's a common knowledge. He says, young man, I want to tell you one thing. I never failed once in life. He says, every time I didn't achieve the goal, I came one step closer to solving the problem, to getting the answer, to reaching my goal, and help me be successful in developing this great breakthrough for humanity and to my own self-satisfaction. So find something that you're excited about, and the minute you take the first step, I promise you, the first step, that instant you'll start to feel better about your existence. And every time you go back to work that project, even though you think you're failing, you'll see as time passes, you keep making progress, and ultimately, if you don't give up, you will win, you will succeed. Never give up. So that's my simplest and most effective advice on how to achieve contentment and success in your own life and in the lives of those around you. So let's move on and get the producer and Len Carter to bring up the subjects that we have up for discussion this week. That a lot has happened over the last 5 weeks. Most notably, the peace, the ceasefire in Israel and Gaza, the ceasefire between Hamas and Israel, and
Yeah, so why don't we start there? Because yes, a lot can and has happened in the 5 weeks or so. What a difference those weeks make. So let's start off with the ceasefire in Gaza, 2+ years since the conflict began. First, just your kind of big picture perspective. Did you ever think this would happen? Where things were a couple of months ago. Did you ever think that we'd get here, at least to the first phase of the release of the hostages and the withdrawal of some troops and some diminishment of hostilities?
I did think of it, but I was very skeptical that it would happen, but I was hopeful that it would happen. And the truth is, all wars in the history of the human race have come to an end, but at a price that's so painful that you wonder why we ever indulge in these activities, wars, and sending our young people, our most valuable assets, to give their lives and their bodies, those that survive in horrendous shape, blind and deaf and incapable of living the life.
So what do you think was the real trigger? Some people think it was the attack, Israel's attack on Dohar, where they made it clear that, they're willing to go into another country and attack, what was a Hamas location in another country, Qatar. Was it just Hamas getting run down? Other Arab nations starting to put pressure on them to end, What do you think, or was it what President Trump says because he got involved?
It was the enormous pain to both the sides, the ones that attacked in the first place, Hamas, that was being brutally attacked in return by Israel, and by Israel being in a war that was killing their young people that they drafted and that perennially serve in Israel because they were always subjected to a bunch of countries that they're surrounded by that declared them to be enemies of Israel.
But
And also the determination of Donald Trump in pursuing this goal. I find it admirable, and he quotes from the Old Testament that God said those that help the Jewish people will be helped enormously, will be favored enormously. And he was helping the Jewish people to resolve this devastating war for both sides. Just so many civilians getting killed. The harrowing nature of wars. So, yes, I think he deserves immense credit and is finally getting it. And I do believe that if anybody ever deserved a Nobel Prize, Donald Trump did, because that was going after the impossible task of 3,000 years of hostility between the Israelis and their surrounding enemies.
See, here's what surprised me. You know, yes, wars generally come to an end when both sides have experienced enough pain that they're ready to start making concessions or, ending. But in this case, I wonder, I question, sort of rhetorically, at what pain did Hamas suffer? I mean, none of the leaders are in Gaza, right? All the leaders are in Qatar or Turkey or UAE, wherever they are outside.
Len, that's a misstatement. That's misinformation because many of their top leaders were killed.
Right, but they just certainly don't. It's not a function of their caring about their people. So a lot of times when the populations are suffering, the leaders want to end that. So when you've got a group that's cares more about death to the other side than death to their own side, it just was a little surprising that this actually happened. I think maybe they realized that when Israel, I think it has something to do when Israel makes a statement by going after leaders in other countries. That's a big deal. To attack Doha outside of Gaza. That tells the leaders of Hamas, you're not safe anywhere. It's like when the Mossad went after the terrorists from the Munich Olympics in '72. After the Olympics, it took years and years, but the Mossad eventually tracked down and killed all of the terrorists who were responsible for that, for all those deaths in Munich during those Olympics. So I think that I think some of it has to do with the leaders realizing Israel means business, and they're quite serious about what they say, and there's no borders, and they're going to do what they say. So you know, fortunately for all the people involved. So, do you think it's sustainable? Do you think the truce holds? I mean, you see some skirmishes happening. The hostages released now. Hamas has given up some leverage for sure, which is quite a step forward. You wonder, what happens from this point, particularly when phase two involves, disarming and not being involved in a future government. Do you think that, I mean, phase one, not that that was easy, but I think a ceasefire in exchange for hostage release is different from willingness to disarm and then not be part of a new government, because it seems like that's not really what Hamas wants to do in the long run.
I find that I have a friend from which country was neutralized. That was at war with Israel and now is somewhat quiet.
Iran?
No, with a D. Right on its border. They were at war in sympathy with Hamas.
Those either
With a D.
Lebanon,
With a D.
Syria, Jordan, Egypt, those are the border countries.
Lebanon. Oh, it's not with a D. Lebanon.
Lebanon and Hezbollah.
Lebanon, yeah.
Yeah.
So he was telling me he's from Lebanon. He's a Christian from Lebanon. Lebanon is a Arab Muslim country, and he's familiar with it. First of all, the United States years ago had a bunch of Marines there, stationed there, and the Hezbollah blew them up, all of them, and the United States left after that. But he was telling me that in his growing up, he was subjected to a lot of abuse because he was Christian, but he said he learned that these people, these Arab Muslims, were almost, the word, in love with death, that they felt that the privilege to die for Allah was the greatest thing they could do. So he said they never had any qualms about going against Israel or any other non-Muslim group that they viewed as their acrimonious to them or animosity to them. And they were happy when they lost their lives in that effort. So he said it's a perverse kind of happiness where you feel rewarded by death. So they don't have the same attitude towards death that we in the Western world or Christianity or Judaism feel about life. Life is important, and we look to save lives. We don't feel it.
I think that's exactly the point. Then, if that's the case, what's the incentive to disarm? What's the incentive to?
Well, because they weren't.
Stop fighting.
They had no chance of winning, and it was getting worse every week for them. So that's the only incentivizing action. If they could, they were looking for a ceasefire from day one. They wanted a ceasefire as long as you let them stay in control.
Right, right. But that's right. So
But
how do you?
they were in danger of losing control
Right.
and getting all of their leaders killed.
But doesn't losing control, isn't that what phase two of this whole agreement is about? About disarming and about not being in control anymore?
Yeah, well,
So how
and
do they
they're
ever agree
doing
to
it
that?
under duress. They're not doing it happily.
Do you
And
think they'll
Trump is
agree?
making it clear to them, if you don't fold your arms and get the hell out of there, we're going to, the United States is going to get active in assisting Israel to get rid of you. So they recognized they were playing a losing hand, and even they realized that it's better to get a ceasefire. Hopefully, they can still fight to stay on as
So,
leaders.
so would you, I mean, in that regard, where there was sort of this implied threat, where Trump says or implies, you go along with this or else we're going to get involved, is that, people might say that's a peace through strength argument, because it's peace through, having the strength and being able to make the threat without actually necessarily having to do it.
Yes, in that sense, it is. But we use it, unfortunately, to go to war. How many wars has it stopped? We're in 9 different wars since the end of the Second World War. I mentioned none of which I understand. I can understand we had a vital interest. We weren't attacked by North Korea. We weren't attacked by Vietnam. We weren't attacked by Afghanistan.
I guess that's right. I mean, what the real idea of peace through strength is not to have to go to war,
Right,
but
but we didn't
but
use
we
it.
do it. But we use it.
Right. Why were we in 9 different
Yeah,
wars since
yeah.
the end of the Second World? No other country in the world has been in that many wars, especially none that weren't attacked. We weren't attacked. What's the rationale? Where's the peace to? Why don't we have, instead of, we went back from what was intelligent, from calling it a War Department to a Defense Department, because defense makes sense. Everybody is in favor of defense.
Why do you think they want to go back to calling it War Department?
They like that as a better
No,
terminology, because
isn't
that's
that
the
what the
truth.
accept was?
I don't know why.
Yeah, I don't get it either. I wouldn't do it.
I know, but
I
but
agree
they
with
did
what
it, and not only that, the peace through strength is the biggest phony statement in the history of the
Yeah,
human
but at
race.
least that's a good marketing
Yeah, it's a good
slogan.
slogan. Good
Yeah,
slogan.
but if I were the Secretary of Defense, I would not want to change the name to War Department.
Why don't we why don't we have a peace department?
I mean, that's what I would do. I'd
No,
have a
Stan.
Defense Department and a Peace Department.
Nobody ever recommended that. Or let's have a defense department against the thing that's going to kill the president and his kids and his loved ones and the congressmen and their kids. And not one American president or congressman or senator has lost a child or a wife or to a foreign attack on the United States. Not till this day. But every day they're losing their children, their most loved ones, their wives, everybody that counts to them, to these people we go to war against. Why don't we go to war against the thing that we know will kill their kids? George Bush, the father, lost a young child, I think 4 years old, to cancer. You'd think he'd get up the next day and declare war against cancer. Not one.
I mean, that goes for
One
That goes
kid
for,
of any
that goes for
congressman
private.
said,
I think that, to me, that should apply to, the private sector as well. I mean, all the billionaires and multi-billionaires in the world, as you say, are going to die of the same things that poor people die from when it
yeah,
comes to diseases.
but
Why,
safety in our country, unfortunately, capitalism, which is supposed to motivate you to make money and works, also at certain points induces greed. And that's what's happened. Safety is subordinate to profits. Profits, we wouldn't have so many guns. More children, the major cause of death amongst children and adolescents are guns.
yep, yep,
So why don't we do something about it? Profits are more important. We don't want to give up the profits that gun manufacturers make and gun middlemen, wholesalers make and retailers make. We don't stop, even though every day there's clear evidence. There's more than one a day of mass shootings in the United States, more than 365 a year. You'd think somebody, and also if we're in a democracy and the majority rules, since the vast majority is for gun control and doing something about it, you'd think we'd have a Congress and a Senate and a president and a Senate and a president that would enact laws to limit, as they did in Australia years ago. In '95 they had a mass shooting. That's it. They haven't had one since then till about 3 years ago. The first since 1995. Because they made it a whole different way. You can't get a gun unless you do it through the police department. You're supervised over a year. You're trained by the police department. You're tested. You're taught to store the guns away so children don't get to it. None of the precautions that are logical and don't create a great deal of effort, don't require a great deal of effort. But safety is subordinate, way below in the hierarchy of desires than profits. Profits count. One of the great economists, what's his name?
Friedman,
What?
Milton Friedman,
What's it?
Milton Friedman.
Yeah. Milton Friedman said the only duty of corporations is to maximize the profits and distributions of dividends to shareholders. No concern for employees, no concern for neighborhood, no concern for the fellow countryman, nothing else. Only that's the only, and that's ridiculous because they have a responsibility to their employees. That's the one that's helping them survive and make the money. You'd think that they worry more about their health care and different things which they try to, because the way to make the most money is cut labor and cut benefits and the neighborhood, they don't worry about the neighborhood. That doesn't help their profits.
Yeah, yeah. So maybe just one final question just on Gaza. Everything has a political ramification. What do you think the effect on particularly Netanyahu on this? I know he was, does he survive politically? Does Trump's saying that his any corruption issues or that he's been indicted for or potentially indicted for should be pardoned. Do you think that the good leadership here in getting this ceasefire done changes his political course?
Well, his political adversaries have taken the position that he's been a bad leader. He didn't get back the hostages right away, which was ridiculous because they're losing so many. Netanyahu's been held hostage by the hostages' families, as if that's the main reason that they were at war, and it doesn't matter how many people get killed or how many murderers and rapists they return to society to get back these limited number of hostages, which Hamas could gather an equal number in a week or less. So you're not doing anything for Israel, but it's been a terrible. The last guest we had on was an Israeli who claimed that Netanyahu, which is a not uncommon view in Israel, is not going after them aggressively, Hamas, because he wants to protect his image or something because he's under indictment. It doesn't affect Trump. He's been under multiple indictments. Does the right thing, what that he thinks is the right thing. You can't run a country while you're more concerned about your own indictment than the good of the country.
Yep.
But that's politics is a very selfish business.
Yep.
Comes way before your winning comes much more ahead of the good of the country. Sad to say.
Yeah. Well, I see we're about out of time.
Oh, really?
Yep. So.
Oh, when you're having fun.
Yeah, we have.
Fun's life.
But next week we'll have some other things to talk about: local politics and the government and the shutdown and.
Yeah, I want to discuss Adami and
Yes.
his rise to
New York.
popularity in New York.
The New York mayoral race is a very interesting one, so we can make that the focus next week perhaps. But thank you for having me.
I look forward to having you back next week.
Thank you.
And I look forward to all my lovable, that I love, my weekly guests. They're my favorite people in the whole world. They drop me nice notes. Even the nasty notes that they drop me where they're critical, I find very useful and helpful because it makes me rethink some of my positions and calm down and understand there are other points of view. So I love you all. I look forward to having you back every Wednesday, 6:30, and have a wonderful week. Have a wonderful every day of your life. God bless you. Bye.